We would like to welcome you to another episode of Popcorn, Piss, and Vinegar. My name is Chris, presiding over the pulpit. I am joined by Scott and John.
Sir.
Excelsior.
Yeah, I'm referring to the lack of mic stands around this place. I'm sitting behind a desk with my microphone balanced on top of a paper towel roll.
We'll post a picture. You'll see it.
High tech here at Popcorn, Piss, and Vinegar Central.
I think you should have a gavel.
A gavel?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll gavel every time that I spoil something for you.
There you go. Oh, yeah, just give me a heads up, man.
Yes, indeed. So I think today we're going to talk a little bit about television. There's a lot of television shows that have been kind of running, and there's a lot of news and TV. You know, we're kind of like starting to get into the slow season of movies. I mean, to stick on movies for a quick moment here before we move on to TV. Has anybody seen Thor 2 yet?
Saw it, yeah.
I did not.
You have not seen Thor 2 yet?
No. I heard it's good, though.
It's good.
It was really good. I thought it was better than the first one. I mean, there was I think it was edited better than the first one. I find the first one to be very choppy. But the second one was really good. I mean, there's all kinds of Loki goodness that's in the movie. He definitely steals the show.
That's awesome.
Leaves you with a lot of questions. Leaves a lot of open doors to the ever-continuing Marvel universe and their building upon of such.
Well, one of the things the first Thor got knocked for, and I don't disagree with it, is it sort of seemed almost totally disconnected from any sense of identity for us. It wasn't until Thor was earthbound, and that's when it started to get interesting. So were they able to do a good job of conveying a sense of like danger or peril for Thor that you actually cared about?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
They don't spoil anything for you, but they...
Yeah, he goes through. He has several trials and tribulations throughout this film. It's with his own identity to become the king of Asgard. You know, he has a turmoil within his family, and of course the ever present looking down upon of his love affair with Jane Foster. So there's plenty of those things, and of course now Marvel, to top themselves. Now we don't have an end of credit scene anymore. We do. We have an end of credit scene, and now we have a mid credit scene. So now Marvel is doing 2 ending scenes per film.
At some point, it's just going to be where they're just going to. It'll be like Cannonball Run, where they'll just show the credits on the right, and on the left they'll just show scenes, and it'll be miscellaneous things.
Right, exactly.
I remember when I was reading comics as a kid, and I remember. You remember how they put asterisks on certain dialogue that would refer to older comics? Yeah. And that's back when comics were a little harder to get. And I remember I would not commit myself to reading anything if it required that I had back knowledge. And I wonder if Marvel is running that risk with DC as well, where it just they everything becomes so predicated on other films that you're just like, I haven't got time for this.
Yeah, but I think that's to me, it makes a movie like Thor or Captain America or Iron Man 2 for that matter really good because it's leading you up to the Avengers. But like my wife never saw any of those movies and thought the Avengers was a good movie, whereas I think it was a great movie because I had that back knowledge of all of those, and
I'm sorry, you said Iron Man 2 and good in the same sentence. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That's it.
So it's like, I guess with Netflix and everything like that, the media is much more readily available. I mean, part of the problem for me is I totally would have bought the comics if they had been available, but at the time you had to go to specialty shops and pay $10, $20
right, when the back issue market was still holding its value.
Exactly.
The 1990s pretty much killed the comic book industry. I mean, it came down to where it was that whole thing of, everybody needs to be a collector. You got to collect comic books because they're going to be worth a fortune in the future. Well, the comic book industry took advantage of that, and they overprinted the hell out of everything. I mean, it's to the point now you walk into a comic shop, and if you're looking for, back issues from, probably, 1988 to, probably 1988 to 1998, you can pretty much buy them 10 cents on the dollar.
Is Spider-Man 252 still worth anything?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I haven't really caught up, but you were talking about continuity and things now. From what my understanding is with Marvel, they've pretty much thrown continuity to the wayside. They're just worried about telling good stories, and if it kind of shits on the past of a previous storyline, they don't care.
That's good.
They only care about movies now, though. They only care about movies. I mean, I have a couple of friends that are in the industry, and they tell me straight up, even the guys who are working in the big times, the guys who are working for Marvel and who are working for Warner, these guys now say the comic book itself is no different than a rubber bouncy ball or a video game or a balloon with the character printed on it. It's nothing but one more piece of merch to sell and kind of keep the character's presence out there. That's all it's there for.
It's another medium.
Just another medium.
Well, I mean, that's what started it. I feel like a certain degree of
It all relates.
respect needs to be. I mean,
Sure, but would you rather? I don't know. I feel like any medium that can say Thor da 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 da, and you can read a comic and find out this backstory, or watch a movie and see where it's going here. It all brings it back to Thor. And I mean, would you rather Thor be forgotten in the archives of?
Oh, I guarantee you, Disney doesn't want it to be forgotten.
Well,
Disney's more interested. Look, Disney's more interested in saying, "Look, we're going to throw $120 million out there, and we're going to get $1 billion worldwide return." And that's just on box office. That isn't including all the DVD and Blu-ray sales that you're going to pull off of that as well.
So now you have this other story, not really other story, but you have this other avenue where it can tell a story of a comic book hero.
Yeah.
And it lives on instead of being wrapped up in a piece of plastic stuck in somebody's drawer for 50 years and Thor? Who's that?
right. Well, I mean,
Thor come to life.
I'm just saying, based on what Chris was saying, if they're turning it into basically just a giant merch hamster wheel,
Well,
that you really should invest in some like creative people putting in and inventing the medium.
Let me look at my handy dictionary here. There it is, Lucasfilm. There it is. Merchandising hamster wheel. There is the example of it in the dictionary.
Well, this is true, So I guess if it found a good home in Disney, I'm just saying from a comic book perspective, I grew up. The medium, we've talked about this. The medium grew up with us, Dark Knight, aged Batman with us, Spider-Man, the superhero Secret Wars, lots of violence. Superman died, when we were teenagers.
Crisis
so the
of
medium,
Infinite Earths.
Crisis of Infinite Earths, yeah. So the medium evolved with us, and has reached a kind of maturity that it can be told on film. So, I mean, we really are kind of the generation that the superheroes are modeled after in terms of growth and maturity. Wouldn't you say, or am I?
I would say so. I mean, the 1980s, which I mean, we're all kids of the 80s in here. I mean,
yeah.
The 80s is when the form really started to change. And I mean, of course, the two landmark books that it always goes back to is Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, and of course, Alan Moore's Watchmen.
Watchmen, right?
And those are the two books that revolutionized the industry, and they looked at it as kind of like a darker, grittier, more realistic look at the comics, at the medium, and that propelled it, and kind of grew with us, all of the things that we went through the 80s. You started seeing those things kind of hinted at, and then all of a course, we had a counterculture explosion in the early 90s, and there it is. I mean, it picked up all those things. So, but
Gotcha.
as we we'll kind of leave that at that, and I think the real purpose here today is kind of getting together and talking about all these budding television shows. I mean, I'm sure we could turn a whole show into comic books,
Right.
but
I did see The Hunger Games last night.
oh, did
You did? How was
It
it?
was good.
Was good?
Yeah. As far as book to movie, stayed true.
So you've read the books?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
I am a very big fan of Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah.
You should watch the movies.
I'm not really interested in the movies, but
Okay.
but I am interested in Jennifer Lawrence. So
Yeah. Well,
all about the Katniss.
I enjoyed the first one. I thought the first one was really well done. I did not read the books.
That's it, yeah. Second one, just as good.
I heard the second one digresses from the book a bit more.
No, it's pretty good. Stays pretty close.
Was it as engaging and gripping?
Yes.
Awesome. All right.
TV.
Well, I would like to talk about my new orgasmic man crush on television. We're going to move over to Almost Human, which
Great.
is spectacular.
It is. It is very good.
If you listen to this show, I highly suggest you get on your Cox DVR or your DirecTV DVR, or go to Fox.com and look up the episodes of Almost Human. There are only 2 episodes in. It's regular slots on Monday nights. It is awesome.
Catch it up now, too, because Fox is about to jumble up its schedule, i.e. beginning of the new year with, obviously, American Idol's coming back, so that takes precedence.
So that means that
everything.
Almost Human will probably be canceled.
No, it is not going to be canceled, but that's the show Dads that's on is going to be gone. What they're going to do is they're going to take the Mindy Project and put that on hiatus. It'll come back in the next year. Brooklyn Nine-Nine will also come back in the next year. But they're going to run, and both will get Super Bowl shows. But Almost Human is going to run, and The Following, that's also a Fox show, is coming back as well. So they need to jumble it up to put their shows that are doing well in, and Almost Human is still in the mix.
Doing some reading up on Almost Human, because naturally when I'm geeked out, I'll read everything possible that I can about the show. And it is the guys who did Fringe. It's J.J. Abrams, and it's the team that did Fringe. And Fringe had a good run. I'm hoping that it has a similar run as Fringe.
Almost Human is J.J.?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
J.J. is executive producer, and Wynham is director. So, but to describe the show, the easiest way to put it, it's like there's a book written by Isaac Asimov. It's called The Caves of Steel. It's about a police officer and a robotic police officer who are partners. Take that and combine it with Lethal Weapon. It's a buddy cop show, and I think what makes the show so great is Carl Urban. He's fantastic. Michael Ealy as Dorian, the android cop, is phenomenal, and their chemistry. Their chemistry is instantaneous. The 2 characters, man. I mean, by the second episode, you like them so much as a team. You just want the show to continue. I mean, the banter is just spectacular. It's great.
We were talking about this earlier. It's more of those 2 than the crime they're actually solving. Like, there's a crime and there's an underlying story, but like, you really don't care if the crime gets solved as long as those guys go back and forth and do their thing.
I'm too legacy for this shit.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I haven't seen it at all, so but based on your recommendations, I'm sure it'll blow me away. I'm very
Catch
excited.
it while it's young.
I will.
And I mean, on top of it, also, what I like about the show also is that I think it kind of gives you a realistic view of what technology will probably be in the next 30 to 40 years.
And it looks good.
I mean, and it looks great. The CGI for a television show is amazing. I mean, it's really good. Like the backdrops, like it's a fictional city, isn't it?
I don't know that they've ever.
It's a fictional city, but like they do
set in like 2046, I think.
They do pullbacks with the camera, and they show you the city, and it kind of looks like it's like a hybrid of like modern buildings and
imagine
and
what,
regular
like,
really cool
the
stuff.
second Star Trek movie when they show the cityscape and that. It's sort of like that,
Right.
The
Sweet.
second JJ.
Yeah, and the technology in the show, everything is hologram touchscreens. So they scroll through information.
Minority Report.
There you go.
He probably
just used the set from Star Trek 2.
Maybe, because it's pretty close.
Yeah, damn good show.
I'm in. I'm totally in. I'm going to watch that.
If you've listened to the show, you know how I feel about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I went ahead and I took one for the team, and I watched the Thor 2 follow-up to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this past Tuesday.
Have you changed your mind?
No. And would it? I mean, I will say this.
A segment for the show. We're just going to ask you every week if you've changed your mind about Agents
Well,
of
I mean,
S.H.I.E.L.D. Yes or no, and then we'll move on.
Exactly.
Right, yeah, it'll pretty much be no every time. But I will admit, this show was better. It was better compared to the first 2 episodes that I've seen. The interaction between the characters was a lot better. I was really happy that we didn't get a witty piece of dialogue every 5 minutes or in response to everything that happens to these characters. I mean, I can't take any situation they're involved in seriously. I can't at all. So at least there was a lack of that, and it was a lot more centered as far as the characters are concerned. But what they should have billed the show as was the first 5 minutes of the show is a follow-up to Thor. That pretty much, and it's them picking up trash from the battle.
Oh,
okay.
You haven't seen.
Well, here's a link of chainmail that fell off of somebody's armor. So throw that in the For Your Eyes Only briefcase and spray it down with some non-contamination fluid, and let's go stick it in the Raiders of the Lost Ark warehouse so nobody will see it.
I've seen the trailer. I know there are fights in a Thor movie, so
I didn't want the gavel to come down, the spoiler gavel.
The rest of the episode deals with a character from Asgard that has been hiding on our world since prehistoric times. And the hidden Asgardian is played by Peter McNichol from Ghostbusters 2.
Oh. Well, I mean, that sounds intriguing enough to me that I'd check it out, but...
It lost me at Ghostbusters 2.
Well, look, whenever I see Peter McNichol, I think of Janosch and wondering why he's drippings with goo. You know, I don't really see an Asgardian berserker warrior, you know, as Peter McNichol. That's not very genuine to me. But, you know, he's Peter McNichol. He's a television and film veteran. He's a name. Hey, get him on the show. Might draw some ratings. But I heard their ratings did go up. But on the quest to see how poorly Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. is doing and to prove myself that I am correct about the show being crap.
You did it.
It is down 53% in viewership since the pilot.
Okay, no,
so there it is.
Let me ask you this. Is there any way they can reboot or save it, in your opinion, you think?
Oh, I think it would need a drastic overhaul to really save it. But honestly, I don't think that the show I don't think the show gives enough credit to its viewer audience. I think the thing with it is that they keep hanging their hook on the cutting room floor from the other movies, and you know they're not really they're not giving the audience enough credit to say, hey, look, we're going to kind of develop this as its own thing, and they're missing the boat doing that. I think the show suffers for it.
Yeah,
you know, and a couple of the things that I did notice is it seems more geared for kids. You know, it just seems there was one episode I watched that kind of reminded me of the A-Team in terms of like how much action there was, and it really wasn't very well choreographed and kind of silly. And the other thing I noticed,
any pitying fools?
well, that leads me to another thing. There is no one of color on the S.H.I.E.L.D. team. It's a bunch of white people, right? I mean, other than
you do have Agent May, who is played by Ming-Na Wen, which I think she's the best character on the show.
She is. But she's in it so little that I barely remembered her. And of course, there's Samuel Jackson, who shows up for it as far as I've seen one episode. But for the most part, it's technobabble honkies for most of the show. And I like it's sort of.
Agents of White Bread.
It seems like what they did is they said, well, we're going to put Joss Whedon's name on it. We'll just try and... It seems like a bunch of writers are trying to do their impression of Joss Whedon.
Well, it's his brother, Jed, that's the kind of like main writer of the show.
Sorry, so Jed. Younger brother, I'm guessing?
I'm sure they're kind of cut from the same ilk. But,
yeah.
But every thread that I go on the internet to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., just to kind of see what the hubbub is amongst the fans, I find it to be about 50-50. And the people who are talking against it all say, hey, look, just give up on S.H.I.E.L.D. and watch Arrow.
Yeah. I've seen Arrow, and I'm totally into it.
Yeah, I finally got a chance. I'm about 3 episodes into Arrow, and out of the 3 episodes, I have to admit, I'm hooked.
It's getting better.
It's very good. I mean, he's very Batman-esque in the show as far as like how he's trained. But I mean...
So what?
Who isn't?
Right.
All those heroes are the same, man. Look,
you either get superpowers or you learn to fight.
Right, exactly. Look, they're doing like they're doing squats and they're doing 4,000 pull-ups. They all do that.
Right.
They all do that, except Thor. He has the natural physique. He doesn't have to work out at all because he's a god. Right, he's an alien.
A god.
Right, Thor can eat 12 stacks of pancakes and and drink maple syrup to wash it down. And he's going to keep the physique, so everything's cool.
Well, I have totally got into Arrow, and I probably wouldn't have watched it if I weren't involved in this podcast, but I felt sort of it was obligatory. And after, like I said, the second episode, I thought it was really well done. I think the bad guys are a little two-dimensional, but I think everything else is really well done. What I was really impressed by or intrigued by was how similar the Green Arrow story is to Bruce Wayne's. I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but...
Because I haven't watched any of it.
Yeah, but Chris, you are like a huge comic fan. Did you keep up with Green Arrow?
I mean, I'm familiar with the original version of Green Arrow, which was like the '80s version. I mean, he had like a lot of trick arrows, like the trick arrows. Like he had stuff with like boxing gloves on it.
Right. Yeah, I remember
a lot
that.
of like really ridiculous type of arrows that he used, and then he was actually changed. And when the comics went through the gritty transition that we were talking about a little bit earlier, they came out with a version of Green Arrow which was called the Longbow Hunter. And he was more modeled off of this character from the show. And he was kind of more of a, more of a serious kind of darker character.
Is the backstory the same though? I mean, was the general like he's on an island?
Similar. He's a billionaire. The character is very modeled off of like a crossbreed between Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing. But I like how they've modernized him. I mean he's like a Kardashian in the show. He runs around. He jacks with the press. He drinks heavily. I think in one episode he reveals that he can't go to a nightclub because the owner of the nightclub, he had sex with the guy's fiance on their wedding night. So he's a Kardashian.
Right.
He's a hot mess.
I will say this. When you see the workout sequence in the first one, which they played in the trailers, I think pretty much any woman would sleep with that dude.
Oh yeah.
I looked at that. And I said, I need to have a body exactly like that, and I won't look in the mirror and cry every morning.
I'm gonna tell you straight up. If I looked like Green Arrow in that show, I would walk around naked 24/7.
Exactly.
That's all I do. I mean, hell, there's just like no need for clothing. You just be like, hey, look, bitches.
Exactly.
Come hither.
Maybe the Kardashians are secret superheroes.
Ugh.
Ooh, God help us.
What's Kim's power? She has a battering ram ass.
Maybe that's the thing.
You know what? They probably are superheroes and just keep forgetting they have the powers.
I just had a vision of Man of Steel when Zod and Kal-El are being thrown through buildings, but I see Kim going ass first into these buildings. Like,
use what you got. Use what you got.
Fire her from a cannon.
Right.
I'll kick your ass. I want to see you try.
But I will say, Arrow is better than Agents of Shield. But then again, I mean, Mama's Family is better than Agents of Shield. But what I like about Arrow is that Arrow is not afraid to use villains from the DC universe. I mean, it's cool. I mean, just in the third episode, we got Deadshot, who's a Batman villain. I mean, and such an old school villain. He was created by Bob Kane, who created Batman. And, I mean, they used him, and they used him in the show. And I've read some, not really spoilers, but I've read previews of other episodes. And I know they have other, like, name villains that appear in that show. And in the second season, they actually have name heroes. A longtime love interest of the Oliver Queen character is the Black Canary. And she is in several episodes. I heard there's some rumor that they're going to use Nightwing, and they're going to use one of Ra's al Ghul's daughters in the show as well. Oh. So I heard that's in some upcoming episodes. So I mean, they're not afraid. They're plucking their universe and giving big nods to the fans.
I mean, on the one hand, I'm like, wow, that's cool, and another part of me is just sort of like, are there any Black Canary feeds on Reddit or anything? Like, I don't think that there's some heroes that don't have a big enough fan base for me to go like, whoa.
Shows. I mean, that's why you do that with those guys, so that they can. So you don't get a one show on the Black Canary, and you're like, oh, this is.
There was a show that was there was a show that ran in tandem with Smallville, based on Smallville's success. They started, and it was very short lived. It only lasted half a season. It was called Birds of Prey.
I remember that.
I remember that.
The main character of the show was the daughter of Batman and Catwoman. And it was kind of like an alternate universe. It took place in Gotham. Batman had gone away. Catwoman had gone away. And their daughter was kind of left as the protector. And she was a metahuman, which is equivalent to a mutant in Marvel. She was born with her powers. And the Black Canary was actually part of the Birds of Prey team, along with a paralyzed Barbara Gordon, who was shot up by the Joker in the Killing Joke comic. She was bound to a wheelchair, and she became the Oracle, which that character kind of became the information broker of superheroes. And the Birds of Prey were those three characters.
Was it any good?
I mean, it was okay. I mean,
Never got a fair shake, I don't think.
it was the same old thing. You know, you're going to base a show on the Batman mythology, but Batman's not in the show. So
Yeah.
there it is.
Like Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing with the Gotham PD show that we were talking about earlier, which will be the cop show spinoff of the Batman prequel. I mean, could it be done well? Yeah, sure. I guess good writing can make anything last. But, I mean, oh, well, it's Gotham City. When does Batman show up? Well, Batman's never going to show up.
Hey, but they did Smallville for the longest time, and he never flew.
Right.
I mean, he was just... And that show lasted a long time.
A long time. And in its latter seasons, like, it got to the point to where they started moving, like, the Justice Society. They started moving that whole team into that story arc. It got to the point eventually you had Hawkman, you had Dr. Fate, all of those minor DC characters, and I mean in their full regaled out costumes. I mean,
And he still never flew.
Really?
I think he started flying in like the last 2 seasons.
That just sounds a lot like almost a lot of foreplay and no delivery. I would imagine that fans were like, dude, come on.
Oh, I have to admit, Smallville's like first 7 to 8 seasons were excellent, and you
Yeah.
kind of hung on, and you were like waiting, like, man, what power is he going to discover next?
Exactly.
And it was really cool. It kept you on the edge of your seat. He didn't get X-ray vision probably until like the 3rd season, and I mean, it was really cool. They really teased a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
He just knew at the beginning of the show, he knew he was very strong and he was very fast. That's all he knew, and then
we all
other
knew
things,
this, man.
other things started developing from
Right.
that.
And like Chris said, you waited. What's he going to get next? What's he going to get next?
I am still so not going to watch that. But
And him and Luthor were great. I mean, that
Yeah, Michael
dynamic-
Rosenbaum as Lex Luthor was beautiful. That guy played that part. I mean, they selected a great actor.
I heard that
he was
rocked
awesome,
it.
really good. So, yeah, but I mean, moving on, continuing on with Arrow here, to kind of close things out. Some of the complaints that I've heard about the Arrow show is that people are like, man, he's a vigilante, man, like he kills everybody. I think it's kind of cool because the producers have already come out and say, this character, based within the storyline, he's a vigilante for a reason. And in the 2nd season, we're going to start developing the character to realize, I don't only have to be driven by a singular purpose. I can be a hero with my powers as well. And he starts turning into a hero. I read in one of the recent episodes, he doesn't have a mask on the show. He actually uses grease paint. And they say in one of the future episodes, he's going to start wearing the mask. And that mask is going to be that's going to be the signifier that he's starting to embrace the heroic side of himself. So that's pretty cool. So.
I sort of like the vigil. I mean, the only complaint I have about, other than the bad guys being two-dimensional, but it's early, I mean, the first 8 episodes, I'll give them some latitude, is when he's facing off with the bad guys, I understand why Spider-Man doesn't use guns, but I'm like, dude, it's a bow and arrow. They've got, like, AKs. They
have AKs, but, man, he moves like a ninja, man.
Oh, he totally does, but I don't know. There's a certain pragmatic side of me that's just like, come on, you knock one guy out, you're going to grab his gun and at least give yourself some covering fire to arrow up, I would think.
Well, that's why they're superheroes, man. They can do things that normal heroes can't do.
Exactly.
So you got to kind of suspend things on that end. So,
yes. Okay, fair enough.
Well, finishing up things here, Scott, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about Sleepy Hollow?
They got picked up for season 2. It's still they have a few more, obviously a few more episodes to go, but they're gonna get this shuffle. They're on the Fox American Idol shakeup, but they did get picked up for another season, and it's still, it's still doing its thing. You kind of like the dynamic between the two, Ichabod Crane and the police officer that he's tied to. And it's starting to get into the mythical, like they're the savior type thing. But there's this still underlying story that you don't really get yet. And then every episode is about let's get this particular bad guy.
Well, is it evolving? Are you starting to get increasingly interested in the show? The stakes are raising.
Yeah, I mean, I want to know. I guess it's not that I want to. I'm not watching it to get the end game. I'm not watching it for that. Like I'm not. Oh, what's
Cool.
going to happen? It's actually, it's you get a little bit here, you get a little bit there, but you get, like I said, like you get there's that underlying story that everybody's waiting for, and then every episode has a little story that you get introduced to, and it always gets wrapped up with something happening in the end, obviously. But
its viewership has slid a little bit, which is why. I mean, does it have anything to do with the content, or is it just because Fox's?
I think it's Halloween. I mean, it opened during Halloween. It was one of those Halloween shows. And probably everybody jumped on board because it's a show to watch during Halloween. But the other part about it is you only get the Headless Horseman a few times.
Right, yeah.
He's not in every episode, which to me is awesome because,
well, of course. I mean,
you don't want that.
It becomes boring at that point. I mean, he's the most. I mean, when it comes to the Sleepy Hollow story and the Sleepy Hollow legend, so to speak, I mean, he's the main antagonist of the story. So, I mean, if you're trying to get mileage out of that thing, you don't want to have him on every show.
Yeah, and they're and without giving anything away because they really open it up in the beginning. Which is kind of cool for me. Is the Headless Horseman is one of the 4 horsemen.
Oh,
nice.
So we've only been introduced to
that's
2,
awesome.
but we haven't gotten them yet. So the basis of the whole show is to stop the Headless Horseman from bringing in the other 3 guys.
How different is this iteration of the Ichabod character? I mean, eventually, first he was a school teacher, then we saw Johnny Depp. He was like a forensic pathologist.
He's more of like a soldier in this one. More of a soldier. He has vast knowledge. He was in he taught at university, and
so they have left the school teacher element to him.
But he's the kicker with this is that he was on the British side during the American Revolution and then transferred over. And so there's this
turncoat.
He is a turncoat. And so there's this weird thing where he does a lot of things with a lot of American history. There's a lot of American history brought into it. What is a lot of the Mason type stories,
Illuminati kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's some of that underneath every now and then. There's what was the movie with Nicolas Cage where he steals
National Treasure?
National Treasure.
There's a lot of American history brought in to use that he's like, I went to see Washington and we talked about this and we talked about this apocalypse that's going to happen, but you don't know it. And
I mean, as Americans, we're only a 200-year-old country. You know,
right.
So I mean, what it comes down to is that we don't have Knights Templar. You know, we don't have samurai. We don't have all these things that are part of our historical culture. I mean, really, honestly, all we have is like cowboys and
Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore. I mean, that's pretty much it.
So it's
God help us.
Right. But
Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, right. The founding fathers.
It got picked up for another season, so that's got to show something. They've invested in it at least one more season.
It seems to me that Netflix is sort of the place you go to give a show a second chance.
Yeah.
I mean, Breaking Bad made it as long as it did because of Netflix. Let's be honest.
Breaking Bad made it as long as it did because it was Breaking
It's
Bad.
awesome. Oh, no. Yeah, but the thing is that so many people caught up, and its viewership.
Like season 2 or 3, everybody was on board at this point.
I think. Well, the last season. I know a lot of people that didn't start watching Breaking Bad until many of us had been squawking about it so fervently that they caught up on Netflix. I mean, Netflix has really, I think, changed the game in terms of what is considered a success. And the good news is, I think networks are going to give shows like Sleepy Hollow a little more time to find a following.
Somebody told me that Fringe has been greenlit again. I heard.
Really?
I don't know if that's true or not.
Fringe sucked.
I don't know.
I remember telling you that
honestly, I think
it got picked up again.
I'm sorry. Come again, Scott.
I remember telling you when they canceled it, they brought it back.
Right.
When it
Oh,
went
so
away.
that was it. Okay, yeah. So Fringe, it was going to go away, and then they came
brought it
back
back.
with it.
Yeah.
And John, you're the first person that I've actually heard that said Fringe sucked.
I mean, I was a big X-Files fan, and it seemed like X-Files written much more ham-fistedly. I couldn't get through the first 3 episodes.
Fringe.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to go into the second season.
Well, you have to realize something also
It's a lot
about
of
the
time,
X-Files.
man.
As great of a show as the X-Files is, now I go back and watch episodes of it now. Like I'll see it play on replays.
Yeah.
It is the truth. It's a very dated show.
Oh, it's a
an
totally
extremely
dated show.
I mean,
It is.
It's very 90s centric.
Yeah, but
So-
there's still some magical moments.
Indeed. Well, on that note, we are going to wrap up this episode of Popcorn, Piss, and Vinegar. We appreciate you listening. You can check us out at popcornpissandvinegar.com to listen to this and previous episodes. You can also follow the After the Show conversation on Twitter at #PPVGuyTalk. And we're also on the Facebook. Thank you very much for listening. We will catch you next time. End scene.
They-